I don't want to disrupt people's preferences, but
On our agenda.
there are
How many
fees
committees
and.
she does, right? You do even committees.
What is it?
Oh, there's Katie.
I think it's something.
Okay.
Have we seen it
To
done?
extend.
Katie's leaving.
something
She doesn't
that
want us to see her.
they've done for 10 years. So I think it's something like that.
Have we seen anything yet?
No, but I think it's just the no issue.
Congratulations.
Done? Tell, give you two. Oh, you're done.
So, yeah. Hopefully.
Switching things up. I also wasn't sure if we were gonna have this room, so I felt like we needed to like.
This is last.
Candy, can you hear us? Can you speak? You gotta take yourself off mute for a second and.
What is that speaker?
I
Pen.
Oh, no.
Shall I sing you a song, Jesse?
No, okay, we do not,
It's a lot.
we do not hear you, so,
Really?
We think it's an us thing, not a you.
it isn't us.
But I have other news on.
I tested this thing fire on solar.
Okay, where is that? More sidewalk.
Carrie, can you hear me?
Indeed, I can. Sorry about that. I had some
No, it's
Zoom.
apparently they can't hear us.
Oh, let me text Jessica.
No, they know that they can't hear us.
Oh, okay.
No.
Can you hear us now, Katie?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Ah. No, it's working. Yes.
And I think so.
All right, are we ready?
Yep.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the June Executive Committee. I'm Jessica Chait and Chair of the MCB4 board, and pleased to call the meeting to order. We continue, as you know, to operate with a hybrid meeting policy with members of the public and press invited to join remotely. Folks on the board who have a disability, illness, or unplanned or emergency caregiving responsibilities are allowed to attend virtually. Excuse committee members and members of the public will still be able to participate and are encouraged to join by Zoom, and board members are asked to leave their cameras on. The meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel, and the transcript is being recorded, and the meeting will be there and accessible to the public for the future. Tonight we have a very brief agenda, actually, and I want to thank you all for coming in light of having a brief agenda and in light of the reprieve in weather, and I'm sure all of us would prefer to be outside, and hopefully we can all aim to do that within about an hour's time, if not less. So that's really our goal for this evening. Not to shut discussion down prematurely, but just to set expectations, and again to also thank you all for coming in light of a not terribly robust agenda. The main reason that we did want to maintain having the meeting was that we recognize that many people are going to be going away for the summer, or meeting schedules are altered, and that we felt it was important, given particularly as it relates to the share report, the number of important things happening in the district, that everybody who wants to be informed before going off into their summer vacations and breaks feels informed on these issues. There's such significant proposed developments for our district, and so we thought it was really important that we at least have this time together. Of course, we'll also have the board meeting in July, but even then know that many people are, in different places, or may not have this opportunity to kind of get on the same page together. So that was really the intent of why we decided to keep this meeting on. As mentioned, we have two items, on the agenda. One is the Chelsea Land Use Committee letter to LPC regarding the application for 436 West 20th Street facade modification. We didn't actually need to bring this to exec. There was a discussion of whether or not we should just have it go out. Due to timing issues, the letter does need to be sent, and I'm going to ask Carrie and Jeffrey to share a bit about what happened at committee and the letter as it's being proposed. But specifically, the vote was quite close, and so we thought it was prudent, given that this does need to get up, that this board, this committee have an opportunity to hear a bit more and ultimately vote on the letter. So with that,
Thanks, Jessica.
Jeffrey can.
I believe the vote was, I want to say 9-4, 8-4 in committee. This was a pretty standard application. A new owner is looking to renovate the facade of their townhouse. There's not an expansion on top or any proposal. They have found certain types of sinking and cracks in the facade as well. So all LPC approved materials being used to do this structural and resurfacing repair, including windows, and like I said, brick. There were a lot of questions about the brick treatment and the brick replacements because of the Flemish style bond that was used, and that was where some of the disconnect from how the folks wanted repair to be done or not. In the end, we found that this was an appropriate application under the sort of in what LPC can opine on, and those that sort of voted against it felt it wasn't because they didn't think it was the best way to do the repairs. And also there, there's always concerns about interiors and also support walls on each side. And it was unclear which direction the building was supposedly sinking from. There were also some questions about what the previous owner did or did not actually do as it relates to, so there was just some murky factors on why some folks, I think in the end voted no. But given that it's a pretty straightforward facade repair, window replacement, no addition, which is most important, that's what got the majority. Carrie, did I miss anything there?
Sorry. Really, it's a replacement of historic fabric with the same historic fabric. That's why that's why those who voted for this felt that it was appropriate.
Paul?
Can I
Oh, sorry, just.
add one of the components that kind of echoing what Kerry said is that these bricks were to be 100% taken out and returned. A lot of other projects we work with at LPC and restoration projects, they don't always reach the 100% threshold. And this was a 100% brick for brick replacement.
What was the note? I'm sorry, what were the dissenting thoughts?
So under the most granular.
I would say, can I say what I think it was? I think that it was really that there are people who believe that you shouldn't really do anything with historic fabric at all. And if it looks wrong and uneven, that's part of the nature of it being an historic building. Unfortunately, there are structural problems underneath those bricks that need to be fixed. So I think that's why. I would say that's why.
And Jeffrey's comment, I think about technique was brought up, that there were.
Yeah, were there some questions about the type of existing of the way it was originally installed, and are they following that 1-for-1? 3 bricks wide versus 2 bricks wide in certain places also came out. But I think Carrie hit the nail on the head with given some of the other references that were made by the dissenting parties, sort of comparing buildings that had gone through brick for brick historic renovation versus those that have not, and that the have not is the preference for the aesthetic, but it's also how do you preserve something that's falling down, which this is not falling down, but there's structural concerns.
I think it's a fascinating discussion, honestly. No, really, I mean, does LPC accept that building should be ever?
Could you say that again, JD? I didn't hear the question.
I just find this fascinating with
I mean,
the two sides.
demolition by neglect is a very real thing.
Yeah.
And it's been a major concern in like all the landmark districts in Harlem, that, there was the Cornhouse building on 125th Street and Park Avenue. That was a gorgeous building that was landmarked, but it fell apart. And so demo by neglect did not come up in the discussion, but it's a chronic issue.
Another part of the discussion is always the issue of facadism, just repairing the facade without overbuildings that are being got renovated. I don't think that's the case here, but that's an ongoing concern on the community.
The application was only for the restoration of the facade and to fix the tilt so that they could put in windows that also match the historic fabric. So they're really restoring it as far as the application says to the original, look.
Bravo.
And to our knowledge, they're not redoing
Yep.
the inside of the building.
Second,
It wasn't a part of the application, Marty, because LPC does not have purview over interiors.
Sorry, Christine was gonna make a motion if you wanna say.
Motion in favor of the application.
Thank you. I don't know, okay, Jeffrey second,
I don't
it's your letter, you can.
No.
So, thank you from JD, all in favor?
Can you just keep your hands up for a second? 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Try not. Okay.
Okay, anyone opposed? Marty? Okay, any abstention? Present not eligible? Katie, did we see your vote?
Yeah, I didn't see your vote, Katie.
You're muted.
You're on mute.
She may not be able to, because she's not.
I think I'm not allowed to vote because
Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you for being honest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Counselor.
Okay, thank you all. Sorry, I almost got blown away.
Literally.
Welcome, Maria. So we are gonna move on now to the chair's report. And have a number of things here that I wanted to brief folks on. Starting with, excuse me, the Hell's Kitchen Neighborhood Coalition social service map. It's actually the social service and cannabis map. So for those who might be familiar, HKNC has worked on a series of maps to help share information out as a public resource. It was presented at the Housing, Health and Human Services Committee at the most recent meeting. Both of these maps, I don't know, just.
Now Joe's trying to get on. This is yeah, we keep on going and get them on.
Okay. We could also pull up the maps. I don't know if that would be a helpful thing, but we'll give Jesse a minute. I'll be figuring that out. It was suggested, there was concern at the, at housing, about the nature of the maps, and I wanted to bring them here. I think it was suggested at that meeting that it would be brought here. I wanted to facilitate a discussion on this. Effectively, there are, again, two maps. One is social services facilities, shelters and supported housing. A similar static map already exists on our website. This would be a live map, including more information. The recommendation that it had been suggested that these maps be reviewed by the committee and then ultimately placed on our website. It was placing it on our website, which met some resistance, specifically, I believe, concern about sharing the information of shelters publicly. My thoughts on this are, I guess, several-fold. One is that I believe that there's a place on our website that we can include this information that will allow it to remain available, but also discreet. And so really that people who are specifically looking for more information, as we list so many other pieces of information, would find it. Specifically that there's a page on the bottom under our resource, if you visit our website, which maybe Jesse will be able to do in a minute, under resources health, where we list a number of resources. We could provide a link or an indication of the map, and then people would click there and be brought to the HKNC website for more information. The other map in discussion is the cannabis map, and similarly on our website, we have information about the task force. And I believe we could say a map of licensed, unlicensed cannabis storefronts and cannabis license, can be found here, but similarly a link there. The reason that this is up for, I believe, discussion is primarily, again, the nature of promoting or sharing, not promoting, but sharing shelter information. And after doing some of my own research, I was able to find that much of this information is available just by asking ChatGPT or the internet, Google at large. And so I agree that we always need to take this information, like we need to be careful and sensitive with it, but I think that this is an appropriate inclusion of the information and we're not sharing anything that isn't shared anyplace else. Of course, any specific edits to the maps, including that these are constantly changing, cannabis stores are being closed regularly, shelters, other things may be moving or going out of business, etc. That any information about particular listings should of course be shared with HKNC for their consideration and continuous update of the map. So I don't know if Jesse, you want to just quickly show the website, because I think the placement of that might also just, again, the idea here is that we're not like screaming it from the rooftops. So this is the actual map. This is the social services map, and then below it is the cannabis map.
Yeah, and just a very quick update, the HKNC presented the cannabis map on last Thursday. The task force did approve it to add a link to their section of their website saying, if you want more information, you know, you can click on this thing. So just to be clear, the maps themselves will not be embedded, would not be embedded in our website. It would just be linked out, so we wouldn't be responsible for keeping track of it per se. It would be HKNC doing that.
And Jesse, can you pull up our website quickly, the MCB4 website? And if you go under resources. Resources. And then I believe there's health and human service down below. And we can include it. You know, under the following themes. With amount of social services can be found here, similarly linked out. And then to jump back for cannabis, it would be under, I believe, the most relevant place is under, if you go to committees and then click on cannabis, there's information and we could similarly include it there. So that is my recommendation. Again, this is, I'm happy to hear any additional concerns or discussion on this, but I think this is, I'm comfortable with this, again, recognizing that this information is one, available, should be available to the public, and two, is already available and co-located in any places.
The only question I would have, and this is out of ignorance than anything else, is that I assume that domestic violence shelters are not included on these maps in any way through HKNC.
No.
So,
Okay, yeah, that would be the only concern I would have. And everyone's shaking their heads like, okay.
Yeah, we don't, the public doesn't have access to that.
Right, that's, I wouldn't want us to be the ones giving access to that, that's the only.
yeah.
I mean, is there any sort of disclaimer on the website that will accompany the map, just indicating this is for informational purposes, this is maintained by a third party? We added this map at XYZ date, like, are those things that?
We certainly can do, yeah, no, that was a similar discussion at the cannabis task force in terms of stating it's, you know, this is a snapshot, right? So this property, you know, we don't want to vilify any property owner for the end of days if they switch and they become a legal dispensary, or if they get, you know, new owner comes on and buys the property and then it's still listed as something that's there. So, we're doing disclaimers similar to that. So I think we do something for the social services.
Yeah, I think we need maybe a little different disclaimers, and you know, we don't know whether it's up to date or not. This is not maintained by.
I wouldn't even add that in their website.
No, I think it's very important to
For
say.
CB4.
CB4 to say,
Informational purposes.
no,
Provided by a third party.
it's provided by a third party and maintained by a third party, so you don't know whether it's up to date or not, right?
The language we had previously used
I
was as of January 2024 or June 2024, as of, because at that moment, we
I
believed
think
it
we
to be
need to
up
do
to
a
date.
disclaimer to say, we don't know whether it's maintained or
I
not.
mean, I'm happy to take whatever language someone wants to draft.
Okay, I think we can
Well,
work
it's too
on.
much, but it's real.
I agree with Jessica's
Yeah, I agree with you.
recommendation.
I think we can work this through and recognize that this is a moment in time, not maintained by us, and I would also acknowledge. And maybe a summer intern or future task force member wants to take on that Jesse, we have a lot of information on our website that's linked out and referenced that's not maintained.
Yeah.
And that is the nature of collecting information and frankly, the internet. And so, but obviously, as we post something new, we can make sure that we're including language that will most comfortable.
And also, just to be clear, it's not gonna be on our website, both of these are linked out.
Linked out.
So it's linked out to another person's or organization
Whatever.
websites. We do a lot of link, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Not uncommon, we do it all, yeah.
Okay, Katie?
thanks. Yeah, I had some specific concerns. One is that it's a little tricky saying that it's a third-party website, you know, it's HKNC, and it's definitely them who've put it together, but they're getting the information from us. So we can't say, well, it's not us, it's them, because they're actually getting it from us. And specifically, my concern about, actually, I have two concerns about that, is that I think there are unintended consequences about putting the mailing address of shelters or where people live and sleep online. And I think it's great that we're putting all the social service information out there. And I think it's fabulous that we're keeping track of how many beds there are, and we should absolutely make that public. I'm just very concerned that somebody in some other state might want to send something that would be really unfortunate for people to receive, either the employees or the people who live in these places. And this is where kids and families live. So I am concerned about us being casual with people's safety. And I understand that, maybe if you can use Chat GPT, you might be able to find some of this stuff, but I don't think we should be making it easier for anybody and putting it all in one place. And my other issue is, and I don't know what to say about this, but, publicizing this information does require us to intentionally ignore the request of a fellow city agency. And I understand that we may not agree with the city agency, but DHS has specifically asked us not to make public the addresses of the shelters. And I think that it's just important that we're mindful of the fact that we are ignoring a request from a fellow city agency if we decide to do this. Thanks.
Thank you for the concerns. Again, I do think this information is publicly available. I spent very little time searching and found things on my own without the resources of HKNC, specifically as it relates to HKNC using our list, or are we them, or they, like, it is an independent organization. We're not. I'm sure they're getting feedback from other groups and entities with men representing many hats. They have organizations as far as First Avenue as part of their membership that may consult on this. I don't think I think if we have specific feedback, any of us should feel free to send that over to recommendations for improving the map. I think this is an external resource. And again, we have many other resources on our website that have not been subject to this kind of discussion and review. And that's not to say that maybe they shouldn't all be, but I think that this is similarly not information that we're necessarily broadcasting, but we're simply making as part of a library of information that's available. So I'm comfortable with them posted here, and I'm willing to take anybody who wants to speak offline about how we, finesse the language and the reference.
I have a different question. That you say you found it as using ChatGPT, etc. Is there a resource, an equivalent resource by the government of that information?
I know
looked
that
it up right now.
Yeah.
It's on 311. It's on NYC 311 drop-in center, and I looked Coalitions for the Homeless has all the addresses, Staten Island, Queens, the breaking ground, where that is. I don't know if that helps or hurt. I don't know.
No, I'm just asking generally whether
it's not all the shelters, but it's
whether all the information which is on the map is also available on another official.
I think we can ask Joe to speak to this, but I would say that I think part of creating this is that all of it is not exactly all in one place, and that would be the benefit, is that we're trying to create a resource that reflects this area, this neighborhood, and bringing together various resources to present that. And I can appreciate, I very much appreciate Katie's concern, and think that someone who is determined, unfortunately, to do bad things and these people to exist in the world, the information is already available to them. I know your hand is up, Jeffrey. Joe, do you want to respond about the nature of the list, or can we keep getting new comments?
Why don't you get more comments? But Christine, there is no government list at all. That's why we've done it.
Yeah, and I'm referring to Joe. Joe had this presented as part of HKNC and the work that he does facilitating that group. So it's just, Joe, when you do respond, you should acknowledge your role with HKNC.
I'm sorry, was I on mute? I apologize.
No, you weren't on mute. I'm just saying, when you do speak, you should just acknowledge your role with HK.
Oh, I see, right. No, I was,
Jeffrey, and then I think we're right.
I guess everyone, Katie said, I will defer to the agreed upon language to have this voted, but the difference here is these are not drop-in centers.
Right.
At all, in fact, you can't just walk in and receive services to them. If it was just drop-in centers, I don't think we'd be having this conversation at all. I get why HKNC wants to do this. I understand it's public information. It does make me very uncomfortable for the reasons that Katie outlined and like many others, frankly. I think just because it's public elsewhere doesn't doesn't necessarily mean we need to be a part of another channel of public access for it.
I effectively would just echo that, specifically what Katie noted on residential facilities. And the way that it broadcasts people's effectively residential address. It may even provide information on populations like that can be tricky. It can lead to, harassing behavior. I don't know if we've seen it here in this district, but it certainly happened in the city surrounding other shelter facilities. While the information is public, it's out there. This is not a problem that I believe exists within this community, thankfully. But you could see how in places that are a bit less welcoming, that has had negative consequences to place the residential facilities, to publicize the location of the residential facilities. And so I wouldn't, strongly oppose putting them on the website, but I would echo the concern specifically about residential facilities as opposed to treatment centers, clinics, drop-in centers, and other sorts of resources, which are providing a really different service and do not, in my opinion, have the same level of risk to the people that they serve.
I think dissent somewhat. I don't think there's any shame in being in a shelter or residence. So I don't think it has to be secret. Everybody in the community knows what their shelters are nearby and gets along with them. There is, I believe, Christine, the controller, we had a meeting with the controller about fair share. The controller's people, Joe, you may remember, you were not at that meeting, but they had a list of all the facilities. So the government has it. So I don't understand why we need to be secret about this. Certainly, Paul, you have a good point. It was raised about domestic violence. Absolutely. But there's no shame in being in a shelter. And by treating it as shameful and something to hide, I question that. That's a little troubling to me.
Thank you, Jane. I think we don't need to, frankly, discuss this all that much more. I would say that people should look at the maps specifically. And if you have feedback that we can give to HKNC or you feel more comfortable giving to me so we can move over, I would welcome that. As I've experienced the maps, you can't actually search by type. So it's not like we're signaling out these residential shelters. You really have to go site by site looking for things. So again, for those who are concerned of a more negative or punitive approach that might be taken against these places, they're not the only things on the map and they are not easily filtered out, which I think should give some comfort, but obviously I recognize that, there's a concern there. So I think send me your comments and feedback, and Jesse and I will work to figure out how we approach it. Joe, you had your hand up, but are you comfortable moving on?
Yeah, just wanted to note that these are publicly funded facilities. We've had any kind of violence, any kind of protest ever at shelters in our district. They've been here in some cases for 20 or 30 years. And the current ones are asylum seeker shelters, a great number of those. We've had no issues whatsoever. In fact, our neighborhood has turned out to volunteer in those shelters. So the issue of creating that there's some safety issue, I don't believe is real. It's just putting all the public information together in one place so anyone from the public can see it, as opposed to just community board members are scrolling through all of our resolutions and letters on it. Thank you.
I would just,
No, we're not voting on this.
yeah, can I just add one thing that I understand the complicated? I think if we all feel this way, or if there's a contingent that feels this way, I mean, we have voted on maps before, they're on our website, a very similar map from 2022 is on our website that the board all voted on. We do list the shelters in our resource section, and so if we feel that way, I think that don't have to have the conversation now, but we should have that conversation at some point, because that is a very different way of us doing what we're now doing on our website about homeless services, so.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on. For the next three things, really I'm gonna be a little bit of a broken record in saying like, we're not deciding these things here now. This is an update, nor, similarly, I'm not looking to replicate committee discussion here, and I think that's really important, or not even replicate, but supplant committee discussion, but I do want folks to feel informed. So for this topic specifically, City of Yes for housing affordability, this is, right now, this has gone to both land use committees and housing for the last several months. There are written thoughts and feedback that I know Joe is, as housing and Joe and Maria are spearheading the letter, the effort on the letter. They've already received comments. If any committee has not yet sent their feedback from the meetings and discussion you've had, please do that. The housing committee on July 16th will be taking this up, and then this will go to full board on July 24th. The deadline for comments is the second week in July, and so like with other COIs, we are missing that deadline, but we will have an opportunity to impact the borough president. We'll have this 30 days following the deadline, and then City Planning Commission is hosting a hearing in September, and so our comments will be in before that period. While I do want to avoid discussion here, and apologies for perhaps putting committee chairs on the spot, I would welcome an opportunity for JD and Paul from Clinton Hell's Kitchen to share any kind of salient points that came out of your committee's discussion. And then also Jeffrey, you and Carrie to share anything that you feel is really elevated. And then of course, Joe and Maria from the perspective of housing. And in addition, the work you're doing to pull things together. I again want to keep this relatively brief, but do want people to feel like they know sort of where the tone and tenor is right now among the board.
I think, Paul can speak on it, but we're concerned that the Clinton Special District will be affected by this tremendously. So that is a concern. The second concern is you invite the developers and you may be inviting displacement. So those two major concerns we have.
Yeah, I think I would echo when we've had many of these conversations is that we have a special district that is generating housing and affordable housing because of the way that we planned it. And this blanket city plan is not taking into account the work that we have done and not making exemptions for the special districts. That also rolls into Chelsea because the historic districts and the West Chelsea district where they're different. So we've been trying to argue a way to create exemptions for special districts that are creating housing from this blanket policy. Is that short enough?
Yeah, that's great. And I'm also hearing, what I know has been said a few times, but that with City of Yes, like in many ways, this is a very welcome. It's very welcome. It reflects our commitment to housing, which has long existed and in this district and maybe not in others. The methodology needs to be refined, but we're expressly concerned about it. But again, the commitment to more housing is reflective of the commitment that this board has long felt. Carrie, Jeffrey, thoughts from
Go ahead, Carrie.
I think we just, in addition to everything that was just said, we have some concerns about air right transfers that are not attached to affordability. So in the historic district, for example, landmarks might be able to transfer 20% of their air rights without having to provide any affordability at all. So there's some questions around some of those things, and Sorry, did you mention infrastructure, Jessica? That would be, I think, the other big thing.
That was the other key one. Mhm.
Yeah, so we have some concern, pretty big concerns actually about, you know, because it is a citywide text amendment, it's kind of impossible to say how it's going to actually come to life in the end and how many people will be, you know, moving into our neighborhoods. So it's impossible to, without a draft, without an environmental impact study, to know what that means for the infrastructure and if we need more schools or police force or fire. So they have not, they sort of are treating it as a, we'll take care of that when that happens, where we're used to seeing that being planned for. So we are concerned about that, and we are trying to figure out a way to address that, and still be, you know, on the side of housing.
Thank you. Do you have anything to add?
I think Gary closed it with what exactly what I was gonna say, is that we had a macro and a micro discussion, really framing it in the idea that we have figured out how to support housing. How could we figure that out through this citywide plan, making sure the issues that we want to call out and be sensitive to can be achieved. And, you know, much like the Clinton special, it's the historic districts in Chelsea that are really standing out and leading the discussion.
Thank you. Maria, you and Joe want to share anything from the housing standpoint?
Well, I took a lot of notes, but I think Joe could probably make it more concise, but I had my stuff here. Joe, I'll let you take it.
Well, just that we're doing updated drafts of the letters. So another one should go out during this week. And we're really trying to thread this needle by being supportive of a general housing policy and things that make sense, but not this sort of blanket application that is not nuanced for our districts. So we're really focusing on that, figuring out how to support things that clearly we understand and are part of our sort of board policy, like, you know, no parking, the idea of shared housing. These are things that we've supported a long time. But it's the devil's in the details. So we're asking lots of questions about that too. So another version will go out, and the goal is to have also begin to start giving solutions that work for our district. And that we'll discuss at length in our July 16th meeting. The last piece is, and I mentioned this in an earlier meeting today, is that I was able through an intern that my office has to do actual massing studies for blocks in Hell's Kitchen and in Chelsea. And I'll be able to share those sometime this week so we can see what would be the impact of the changes in the zoning in actual overlaid on top of the blocks. It turns out there's a map that exists that was done by the city of our entire district with every building on it in an axon. So you can actually manipulate it and move it and look at it. So we'll start seeing those during this week. That's all.
Maria, anything you'd like to add?
Joe didn't mention what I thought he was gonna mention, but, so, how much do I want to say? How much time do I got?
Not much.
All right. Unfortunately, everybody wasn't able to attend the meeting we had today, but it was really, useful and helpful to hear and really made everything concise and sort of simple.
It was a meeting with Eric Rocher.
Oh, I thought you mentioned that already. Sorry. Yeah, the meeting that we had today with Eric Botcher and the co-chairs that just spoke. And I think the thing to me that stands out the most, that's the most interesting, or the thing where the areas of concern are the most, is when it comes to the universal affordability preference, the campus infill, and the small and shared housing. And I think that when this draft letter comes out, that everyone really needs to take a look at it and have input or share their thoughts about it, because this is really important for our district.
Thank you, Maria. Again, I want to limit discussion, but I think there was a question.
Do we have a sense, did we make a calculation that how much affordable housing will be produced in CB4 by this plan?
Roberta made that calculation.
What, as part of the environmental assessment, the Department of City Planning engaged in unit estimates by community district. And they basically created a dwelling units per acre. And we're, I don't know, something like 1.3 for 1,000.
It was 1,000 you came up with.
acres. So it would give you the 1,000, however, you would need to believe that methodology that is federally required, as part of this environmental assessment. And you would have to believe that that is a good predictor of how much housing is going to be built. And I would, my professional opinion as someone who works in housing, I think that it's useful, but it may not tell the full story. So it may not be the best predictor. And it can be hard to predict that actual number, but.
But it's the
let's
measure
say
they're,
it's 1,000 is
it's
what
the measure they're using, so we have to rely upon something standard across the board, right?
So it's
What was
1,000?
that number again, Joe?
1,000,
1,000 units,
Units.
approximately.
And you said
I think in our district plan, we can produce many more than 1,000 units.
well, that's my point, is that, Joe, I was going to say it would be valuable in the memo to contrast
Yes, we will,
What?
yes.
the numbers we have created and we are planning to create with those plans versus what is to be produced by this general.
Yeah.
And it's all I
So
want.
we will.
It's an impressively low number.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know, is that your center for
Yes.
lights, we've actually kind of 1,000 is a low number, that a couple
Yes.
of really small.
Yes. That the Department of City Planning indicated that we were one of the, maybe it was like second from the bottom. in
Six from the
terms of,
bottom, right.
projected production from this proposal.
Because we already did it.
Well, that and community board four has historically gained a lot of units through
Right.
big projects, like big zoning projects or rezoning of commercial land. And those are the highest volume typically for units. And so when you think about the big places where you have a lot of production, it's a lot of older commercial manufacturing, big sites.
But it gives you a context to the risk reward.
Exactly.
To make the
Yeah.
argument, right.
We are talking about all the risk, and the risk is what reward is. I think it's
Yeah.
very, very important to highlight that.
Maria, and then.
The other thing that I think is important to have, especially for new housing committee members, is that we have an affordable housing plan. It's also on the website. It suggests or allows for more than 1,000 affordable units in our district.
10,000.
No,
Oh,
provides for the preservation and creation of upwards of 30,000 units of affordable housing.
right,
First 29 and change.
Versus
Yes.
City of Yes, 1,000.
right.
You take it.
So we just need to, and it's not bad, it's probably a lot in our district, right?
Well,
The biggest is, I think the biggest single is meant to be the accessory dwelling units across different districts. Like that is what their methodology indicated would be the.
So I want to wrap this up, but just as a reminder, this is going, okay, Katie, just a second, this is going back to housing on July 16th. I would encourage people to,
Oh, is that the new committee date from?
it is I understand that's the new date or the 16th. I'm making it whatever day it is, so I would encourage folks to.
You told us it's 61.
You should have started the meeting.
So,
put in my calendar.
okay, and then, again, I do want to wrap this up, but Katie, who want to add something, and then we'll move on.
Oh, I was just going to say, Christine, that what we talked about during our HHHS meeting was that, we would be happy to say to the city, basically, tell us how many units of affordable housing you want. And then we will commit to doing more than that, but we're going to do it our way, right? The way that is already planned out and that we've been already able to do thoughtfully. So it's basically to your point, Christine. That's all.
And I think all of you know, but obviously the reason why this is a citywide plan is because not every board would take that approach. And
Ding,
so
ding, ding.
I think we do need to be careful and cautious about what we are willing to do and think is appropriate, but how do we also motivate and require other boards to do their share, because this is not something that we're not gonna build, this district alone is not gonna build the city's way out of the housing crisis. So with that, go to housing on July 16th, and it is gonna be a lot of information, so block off your calendar now to have time to review that document. Moving on, we're gonna do just an update on Port Authority. Port Authority presented to both Clinton Hell's Kitchen land use and transportation. We have asked them to come back to Clinton Hell's Kitchen land use on July 10th. I think we're still waiting on confirmation. Meanwhile, the working group continues to meet and will continue to meet with them even beyond the alert process. We will be expecting a full board, a vote, a full board on July 24th. The deadline there is August 5th, and then again, like the other project, it will go to the Borough President and City Planning Commission for a hearing. Again, we'll turn to Paul and JD if you'd like to give an update following your meeting last couple of weeks ago, and then Christine, if you want to represent for transportation, to give an update to everyone.
We decided it was too big a project, but we voted no.
Okay.
And to say we don't want it here.
You're recorded forever, you remember?
That is so.
Why didn't you say that for the last one?
There are some, grave concerns raised at the land use meeting, which we will further discuss on the 10th of July. And that's basically, if they build these buildings, is it set in stone, or can they come back in 5 years and say, we need another $1 billion, we're going to go higher on 9th Avenue storage facility? So there are some critical land use concerns that we still need to talk about.
And I would just augment that a bit, which is if they came back and asked us, maybe that would be okay. It's that we don't want to approve a text amendment that they could do that without having to come back and ask us, right? That's
Never.
fair.
But you're right. That's right.
And so that we're not, that we're clear on what the specific land use request is, so that we can, do that. Paul, anything you want to add to that?
No, and we try to stay focused on the land use issues itself, not the transportation, not the design, not the, like, because that in and of itself is gonna be a challenge.
Yeah, it is a ULURP, so that is. Kristen, do you wanna?
Yeah, and we had some similar concern. For example, the text says that it could be other bus terminals in CB4. And we're like, wait a minute, this is not part of the deal here. So the language is really not good, maybe on purpose or not on purpose, I don't know. And then the other thing is that we discovered that they are going to have an interim bus facility, surface bus facility on 30th Street during the construction. And when we push them on what happens at the end, they would not commit that they are going to remove it. So that would be, another facility there that continues as a bus terminal so these were the two, in addition to all the other, horrible traffic and other, difficulties that the project is going to create on us. And the closure of 41st Street, which is going to increase by 50% the volume of cars on 37th Street. So whenever, I didn't realize that until they showed us the chart. So when they say, oh, the 41st Street has no impact, well, 37th Street, which happened to be behind my building, it's enormous. I mean, it's enormous, it's a very big impact. So we really need to get on this mitigation, and those two pieces of language, which are really very sloppy or intentionally very sloppy, and we need to fix them. And I'm sure Joe is going to work on that.
And just have the letter is going to be the mother of all letters, because it's going to be land use, transportation, WPE concerns.
Right.
And all the other things they did not meet with the DIS.
So all the mitigation.
And also with the letter.
Which
Taking the BSA application.
So I don't believe we've circulated at the committees, I think at this point. So Christine was bringing up the mitigation list. We could share that with exec if we haven't already. This is a list of the requests that we've made to the board.
That the group has come up with.
from a reflection, things that have been in the deep, in other letters and other things that we have previously been on, record for. And, that we want to be sure, particularly as we engage in this ULERT process, that we are getting things on behalf of the community that will help address the long-term issues and concerns. There are two questions in the room.
Yeah, I think rather than one giant letter, we should have two letters. One clear just on the zoning issues, which is the ULERT, and then another letter on everything else that we have the concerns about. Not, the DEIS stuff, the mitigation, so that should stand out, not get lost in the zone, or the zoning should not get lost in that. I think.
For the committees.
Yeah, I just have a reaction to that, Bert, is that because it's a ULERT, this is an opportunity for us to incorporate some of the mitigation issues into a more formal document that's part of the process. If we separate the mitigation from the ULERT, it remains separate. And so I want to incorporate it in so that the city has to actually look at these mitigation issues and make a decision on those mitigation issues as well.
My question is, maybe you know more than I do, okay?
I do.
But does the city really have to, look at all this bullshit on mitigation, we just want to know about zoning, and they just might skip it.
No, that's
I mean-
part of it.
No, they won't.
No, okay,
no.
With any ULERT, they will look at what, they look at.
No changes unless,
Right,
I think that's gonna be the approach.
Okay.
So,
and that's going to be a discussion we need to have,
Yeah.
whether we want
Can't
to
change the zoning.
deny it or improve.
And that will
I
be,
withdraw what I got.
so again, that's the
Delete July.
That's the July 10th meeting. I would encourage people to come to the Clinton Hills Kitchen Land Use to figure out that language. Because it is really important.
I'm struck how this group is able to compartmentalize three huge projects that we have in our district. NYCHA, the bus terminal, and the Gateway Tunnel, and never mind Hudson Yards, I guess that's four.
And housing opportunity.
Huh?
And housing opportunity. City, yes, the whole.
I think.
I'm talking about no, I don't think that's included in what I want to say. I'm talking about the physical projects that are in our neighborhood. There are two issues that one issue that we've managed to get in letters for the bus terminal, Hudson Yards, not Hudson Yards, Gateway and Hudson Yards and NYCHA is separating stormwater from sewer. And that's an important issue for the environment in our area. And somehow or another, well, the other one is moving materials out of the area or into the area by barge. We've been pushing for the barge issue on the Gateway. It seems like a very obvious, and it's in a letter that's coming up, or that you may have already seen. There's no reason they can't be moving, having cement and not put all those trucks on the roads. It should be a lot of them, removal and intake should be by barge, but it's not. It's an issue for each of these projects, but it's not a separate issue. And I haven't thought about this a whole lot, but I'm hearing these conversations, and we don't integrate them as to a single piece. I mean, why should Gateway build for barge and Port Authority build for barge? They're not. Neither of them are thinking about it, but why should they be doing it separately?
No, Port Authority is thinking about it. Because they did it for
Airports.
the airports, and they are thinking about redoing, replicating that.
That would be lovely. I'm glad to hear they're thinking about it. I hope it'll be more than that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that issue and the stormwater issue is not separate to all these projects. And somehow or another, we need to be talking about them. We need to be talking about them in a more unified way.
I think that would be great work for the committee to think about how, as a platform, we have language or a statement that says when considering big projects, construction or otherwise.
What agencies is going to take that up?
Well, even to have something like a template of language that we use that can be worked into proposals as they come before land use or housing or whatever it may be, I think.
If somebody was gonna build a large facility, why should it be separate from Port Authority and Gateway, to use those two examples?
All right.
Thank you. And the stormwater is in the mitigation plan. So that was.
There's a number of environmental ticks that, you know, that were ticked off, that are similar to all the projects.
Take off or take off?
I mean, like that we ticked off to all the projects, so I think it's part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is the update on the bus terminal. The last item, and I did sort of promise Jesse we would be out by 7:30, so within the next 2.5 minutes, is the update on Chelsea, NYCHA, the Fulton, Elliot, Chelsea plan. The letter.
Yes, let's defer to the chair.
The letter on interim repairs went out. We are expecting the results of the DEIS in the coming weeks. And we have been successful in getting some information from NYCHA. That said, it still remains very slow going and painful. We've had a number of conversations internally and with our council member, really trying to formulate a new approach to this. Clue will be taking this up again, likely at their July meeting after a very robust discussion at the last meeting. Which I'm happy to, Jeffrey and Carrie, if you'd like to give an update for you too. I actually think that their whole meeting was actually worth watching if you have not, I don't want to punish anybody, but it was actually a very robust and meaty and meaningful discussion with a lot of perspectives, but still quite, for the lack of, there was an uncivil, like an area lacking civility, but then the discussion among the committee itself was actually very civil, and I would recommend it. This continues to be a really challenging project for us, and I think the conversation with our electeds will continue to ensure that we get more transparency and clarity from the applicant as to what is being proposed, because we continue to be without significant information. Any comments, questions on that? I wish I had more rosy news to report, but you have our commitment that we'll obviously continue to work on this.
Just a question. And it's very possible you don't have an answer yet. Is there a time frame at the end of which we have to make a final statement about the redevelopment?
They will pursue a ULURP. And so like with all of these other projects, or not, but the plan right now is that they will pursue a ULURP. And that is, but certainly seeing the results of the DEIS will be important for understanding not just how they respond to our comments, but we have seen letters from other agencies also expressing concern about about what was originally included, and I think it'll be very telling to see what that response is and how we go from there. And that, frankly, is probably the best place for us to then re-engage on this topic, because it'll be a response and a public engagement period, and I think that will be a natural place for this community board to collect feedback and generate a response on. Right.
I'm sorry, I find all this stuff, I've said this to you all a number of times before, I find it daunting and confusing. And there's so much paper that, I said this to you on the way in the elevator. There's no way I can read all that paper. I'm not a housing lawyer. Will there be a moment when all the salient pieces are in a single document?
I don't know if I can commit to that moment specifically, but what I can commit to is I think the co-chairs of this working group of these two committees have dedicated a lot of time, myself as well and Jesse, and we're happy to make ourselves available. I suspect we'll also be joined at the appropriate time by land use council and others who can help us wade through this information. And I do think it's important for the board to feel comfortable with what's being proposed, so, I think, you know, happy to carve that out. I don't think that kind of it now, because we are still without so much information. There's a lot more paper to come our way before we can better understand what is even actually being proposed.
So I imagine that at some point, somebody with a pay grade higher than mine will be able to consolidate all this information into a document. I'll read that document if you tell me it's a comprehensive document. But all this shit that's flying around, oh, I'm being recorded. That.
Okay, I think that document is gonna be massive also.
The one document that I know has the information I'll spend the time on, all these separate pieces of paper, I'm telling you, and I'm sure I'm not alone, I'm just saying, I'm saying what a lot of you are thinking. I ain't gonna read it.
Fair. Jesse, you wanted to say something?
No, I would just say we're in different different stages, right? So if you look at where we are with the Port Authority, the list, you know, we're in a much different place. We have all of that material. It's on our website, the scoping, the draft scoping, you know, response to EIS. I think these are salient documents that do what you're asking them to do. I don't think we're there with this one yet, and we will be though. So I think we have to be patient with that a little bit, but we will be, just the way we responded to all those other big ones. We're gonna respond to they're gonna come back with responses to our draft scope comments. We'll have comments on that. That will be building a foundation that you'll be feeling more comfortable. You still might not like the project, but at least you'll have
Information.
You'll have the information in a way, just the same way we always do with all of our letters. We give background, you know, I mean, you know, we give point by point, so.
Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
sorry that question pushed you over the limit.
That's okay, that's okay. With that, I'm gonna turn it to, Jesse for office.
No, you know, just on 2 points before I get this, I have almost nothing to say. So, but I just wanted to say 3 things. One, I've only been working on this board for 10 years or so, but I can honestly say, and I'm sure there's folks on that board that have been working much longer on it, been volunteering on this board much longer than I have, been working on it, can maybe tell at a different time when we were busier, but you all are the busiest I've ever seen. I mean, this is, I just wanted to make sure everybody understands, you know, the amount of projects you all are working on is astounding, and I think that's what you're kind of referencing that, and so you should understand that. I've never seen it this busy in my 10 years or so, and we've had some big projects, we've had multi-block projects and stuff like that, but this is putting a board at it, and it's stressing the most. And so I think you should feel proud of yourselves for all the work you're doing, and give yourselves a pat on the back and give yourself a break when you need it. Because again, it's not your day job. You guys are put in very difficult situations with some of these projects. And it's just not easy, so I just wanted to say that. The other 2 things, with PABT, I wanted to say that, I think we were all expecting the community and the neighborhoods, residents to come out at the last land use committee and probably rip Port Authority's heads off, right? And I think that didn't necessarily happen, that didn't happen because I think they trusted you guys. The amount of things that you guys on the working group level and then on the committee levels that you guys were working on and talking about and getting PABT to be in a better place than it was considerably. I think they saw that and they understood that. And I think that makes a huge difference. And I just want to say that's just because of all the hard work you're all doing. And then I just want to say on City of Yes, we're on a meeting today, and we had the head of the land use, city council land use. He's been doing it for 2 years now, and he's worked at HPD for probably a half decade before that. Say that you all have probably heard this before, but honestly, he said, we really wish we had 59 CP4s, all right? And they're dealing with something like this, which is extremely difficult. And everybody who says, a bunch of people just saying no outright, some people saying yes without even looking at it, whatever it is. So I just wanted to highlight just these things for you.
Jesse gets a raise.
All right. Yeah, compliments are over. So, anyway, just real quickly, the committee schedule, so just a reminder, there's no full board next week. So don't show up. Feel free to.
July 3rd, so
No,
find something else to
Yeah.
do.
No pressure on getting your letters in by Friday, that's a gift, another gift you guys get. So there is a committee scheduled for July, there's 2 drafts on the page, so please take a look at it. Again, always look at your committee, but please do look at everybody else's committee, so you're not surprised when something pops up and you're going, why is that on there? Yes,
Can I ask about quick committee stuff from JD? You and I haven't been talking about this yet, but we have an item on there we haven't seen. I suspect it's gonna be small and minor. Can we just reverse the order? So
we certainly can, I actually have an entirely other way of getting rid of it, so, and, yeah. Janine is gonna contact you. It is a special permit for a parking garage that you guys approved in 2014, it's a 10-year permit. There's literally nothing from 2014 letter, it was the year before I joined, it's a 2-paragraph letter. I think you guys can take a look at it, take a look at the application, you don't see any differences and changes.
Well, we don't want to approve it.
So, yeah.
They have not been using it?
No, they haven't,
Oh,
and they have to come back every 10 years. And you know.
Oh, so
yeah,
you're
Even if we're doing a committee vote on
You
that.
can do it whatever you like,
Just so they.
but I understand, I don't think it's necessary, but anyway, yes, you can.
Thank you.
So just very quickly, just so I'm on record, ACES committee is not gonna meet in July, so if you decided to do that, housing, you've already, Jessica stole my thunder, housing is moved to the 16th, I'm joking. Moved to the 16th, so please keep aware of that, we're trying to get quorum for that, because that is an extremely important vote, as we all know. There most likely will not be an exec, we typically do not have an exec in July, because literally 3 days later, you got a full board, which will be at the High Line, which will be outside, as we have done in the last 2 years. And the next day will be our summer social, right now, tentatively planned for Bella Absent Park, and that the concession there, food and drink and beverages, children and.
Paradise.
And
Paradise.
Paradise, yes, Paradise in the Park, exactly. And there most likely might not be, most likely not a cannabis test. So that's it, unless I missed something.
All right.
So again, review, I guess we'll send this out, but I haven't seen that.
I think so.
Yeah, review so that not just for meeting dates, but for topics, so that we are ensuring, alignment and collaboration where appropriate. Okay, we're 8 minutes over, but I think that concludes.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Exactly.
All right. A great evening, everyone. Thank you for coming in and